Okay, so here comes the next question. What do we do if we got a flat tire and we're on the road? Okay, now I do need you to understand this. One thing that's going to be different is different for every car. The basic procedure is the same. You're going to need to get a jack out. You're going to raise the vehicle. You're going to have to take the tire off, and then you're going to have to replace it with a spare. Those are things that you need to look at beforehand. You need to make sure that you have your tires, that you have your spare, and that it's in good shape and it has air in it. You need to do all that before you ever leave the house, and check on that every year or so to make sure that your spare has air in it and it's good to go, because if you end up getting a flat tire when you're out on the road, that could be a real problem. A lot of cars have different style jacks, different things. That's why I can't show you all the possible options, but I'll show you just kind of a basic way that would be pretty standard. And then what you're going to need to do is read your manual or look at your car and find the jack. So a lot of times I've shown this to my daughter, but whether she remembers it or not, I really don't know if she'd be able to change the car. She'd probably just call somebody. But if she'd be able to change the spare, but really it's something you need to be able to do. And your owner's manual, if it's in the car, will tell you where your jack is, where your spare is, the procedures for letting it down. But like in my minivan, it's the spare tire's up under the middle of the van, and it's really hard to get to. So that one's kind of tricky. If I'm in the truck, it's back in the back of the truck, and you actually have to use a little winch to roll it down. You know, you stick the tools in a different way. In most cars, it's going to be in the trunk. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that real quick and just show you how this one's done, and it'll be similar to a lot of what you're used to. Okay, so one thing I'm going to recommend, this is a 4-way lug nut wrench. We talked about that when we were learning the tools. I buy one of these every time well, I don't always buy it when I get a new car, but if I get a new car and get rid of an old one, I just swap it out. But every vehicle that I own has one of the 4-way lug nut wrenches, because a lot of times the tools that come with your car are just not real hefty, and this is something that's not real expensive that you can pick up at Walmart or Kmart. So I'm going to set it over here by the tire for now. Whoa, that's loud. I'm going to get back in the trunk. My particular spare is located under this cover in the trunk. Now, one thing about the spares, a lot of times the spares are a whole lot smaller than the real tire. But what you'll notice in here is there's a screwdriver, there's this little hook, there's this thing in the middle, which is the jack, there's a rod in there, and it looks like there was supposed to be something else here. Again, I bought this car used, but this right here, when you pull it up, that's your lug nut wrench. So it's much smaller. Will it work? Yes. Will it work as well as the 4-way? Probably not. So that's why I always keep one of those in the car. So I'm going to go ahead. I don't think I'm going to need the screwdriver for what we're doing, but I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. Now you'll notice that below that, there sits the spare tire, and this one's actually an aluminum wheel, which is pretty impressive. And I've never even had it out, but it's aluminum Acura wheel. I guess they want it to look halfway nice. There's a little screw cap on there that says temporary tire only. One thing about your spare tires, they are not designed to ride for miles and miles and miles and miles. You don't take them on the road trip. They're designed to get you somewhere till you can get your other tire fixed. So if you take your tire off that has a flat tire, put your spare tire on, put your other tire that was bad in the trunk, and go get it fixed and trade them out. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all these things and then show you how to do it. Okay, so we're getting ready to use the jack. If you look down on the jack, it'll even tell you there's points in the car, and this is the one that came with the car. It tells you to make sure that you put them under certain tabs. So we're going to go down there and look for those and find those tabs. I'm going to steal the phone for just a second. I've got a videographer with me today. So when you look down underneath, there's these little pieces of metal that stick down under the car that are designed specifically for a jack. Again, if you will look at your manual, it'll show you all those things and show you how to do it. So I'm going to hand him the phone back. With this one, this is a pretty basic jack. It's got a lot of clearance between here and there, so I'm going to go ahead and start twisting it up. And there's a little groove in there that's going to fit right under that piece of metal. Now, if you were out somewhere and you were over a ditch or something, you may have to find a brick or a block or something if it was too high, but typically this will be fine. So I'm rolling it up with my hands until I get it right where it needs to be. And now it's in the right position. And then the tools that came with it. One is this little loop. I'm going to hook it inside. And then this right here was my tool to take the lug nut wrench off. That's going to go in here and then we're gonna spin it to raise it up. One thing that's extremely important, before I ever raise it, I've got to break my lug nuts loose. If the lug nuts aren't loose and you raise it off the ground, when you try to spin them, you'll just spin your tire. So I'm gonna try it with this tool and see if it'll work pretty well. It's a decent one, it's better than some. Yeah, it's gonna spin. If you're out and about, you might wanna set your emergency brake to make sure that it doesn't roll off. And your car could be front wheel drive or rear wheel drive, and it makes a difference. Now I'm breaking all of these lug nuts loose, but I'm not taking them off. So now every one of them is loose. Now that I've got them loose, I'm gonna hook this back into the jack, and then I'm just gonna turn it. And as I raise it up, the whole car is gonna go up, and eventually I'm gonna have the car tire all the way up off the ground. So for time's sake, I'm gonna let him pause the video, and then after I've got it off, we'll move to the next for a second. And just press start when you're ready. I do. You got it? Okay. So I've got the spare tire out, and you'll notice it says 60 PSI. So this one's really ready for a lot more pressure. I tested it with my pressure gauge, and it's only at 29, so it's not even 30 pounds. So that's a good thing that I got that out. I haven't had this car super long. I've had it for a little while, but one of the things that I'm gonna wanna do is raise the pressure on that tire to where it's supposed to be. And so I'm glad that we did that. Now I'm gonna cheat a little bit in taking this other tire off. You would use this same lug nut wrench. Let me move this tire. There's our jack. It's all the way up. The tire is off the ground. I could take this lug nut wrench, and again, if I was out on the highway, I would use this and just take it and spin those off, okay? I'm just gonna speed it up just a little bit and just get all these off real quick. You have to give the tire a little hit, but don't go nuts because you don't want to fall off the jack. And then you're going to take your flat tire and put it back in the trunk, okay? We're going to take our spare, which again, this one, now I know, actually doesn't have enough pressure on it. One of the things you'll notice, these spare tires don't look exactly like the others. It's considerably smaller. It'll be the same diameter, so it's the same size around, or at least it should be, especially on this car because it's all-wheel drive. It's important that they're the same size. On anything, if it was in the drive, if it's front wheel drive or rear wheel drive, you'd want it the same size as the other, where it puts a lot of tax on your differential. But then what you're going to do is take all your lug nuts, put them back in, tighten them, and again, you can only tighten them so far with your lug nut wrench. You tighten them by hand and finish them with this, and get them snug. And then you would let the car back down on the jack, same way that we let it up. We just put it back in, and this time we turn it backwards instead of forwards. Let the jack down, and then come back with your lug nut wrench and really tighten them down tight so that it's not going to come off. And from there, you need to make sure that you head on out and get to repair shop, tire shop, whatever, and get your other tire fixed and put back on. Because this is not the tire. You know, if you're on your way to Florida and you get a flat tire in Tennessee, and you think, well, we'll just head on down there. Please don't take your spare tire, your extra donut tire, and try to drive to Florida on a tire that's made to only go, let me see what it even says. It probably even tells you, yeah, don't go more than 50 miles an hour. That's important. So you're not going to be doing a bunch of high-speed internet. And it is for temporary emergency use only. It says that right there. Don't drive it long. Make sure it's got a lot of air in it. Hurry up, get your other tire fixed, and put it back on. So that's how you're going to change your spare tire. Thanks.